Part 22. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 211. Seeing what Fang Gu said, Shan Yu sighed helplessly and said nothing more. Afterwards, the two of them recovered a little bit of their spiritual power and walked out of the room. What you see before your eyes is a ruins and a lot of debris. There is also the lingering smell of blood in the air. The pungent smell of blood made Shan Yu look a little uncomfortable. I almost vomited it out. The bustling and noisy scene before is no longer inside the pavilion. But one corpse after another. No matter where you go. Some of these people were killed by the blood formation, and some were killed by the square bones. No one who stayed in this attic escaped. After all, with the blessing of the blood array, Fang Gu is like a god of death and is invincible, killing everyone. As for resistance, snort. Their own spiritual power has long been blocked by the blood formation. People who have lost their spiritual power are no different from ordinary people. May I ask? How can they resist? Is it possible with their mouths? Snort. Unless there is someone here who has practiced in the physical body to the level of martial sovereign, which is almost the same. But alas, there is no such word as if. There is no genius who has cultivated to the martial sovereign realm in the physical body. If there were such geniuses, they would not stay here. The sound of the ruined pavilion naturally attracted the attention of the city lord's mansion, but they did not make any move. Unless the city lord, or even if the sky fell, they would not take a step. City Lord's Mansion. In a dark cave. A middle-aged man with a majestic face and a terrifying aura sat cross-legged here. The aura on his body was rolling like a river. Even the space could not bear this aura and began to tremble slightly. This person is Yuan Tian and the master of the city. Yuan Tian frowned, as if he felt something, opened his eyes, and murmured, "This breath seems to be from Yume Beauty." Not good. Yuanation's expression changed, as if he thought of something. He stood up quickly. The body turned into a phantom and appeared high in the sky above Yume Beauty. It was too late to even notify his subordinates. Seeing the scene in front of him, Yuan Tian's eyes widened. This. It's not that Modita looks like this. It's because such scenes are extremely rare, unless there's a big war. After a few breaths, Yuan Tian slowly came back to his senses, and happened to see Fang Gu and Shan Yu staying at the ruins of the attic. Seeing this scene, Yuanation's eyes immediately flashed with murderous intent. I want to see what happened. As soon as the words fell, Yuanation's figure instantly appeared next to the two of them. At this time, as soon as Yuanation's figure approached, the blood formation hidden in the attic noticed him, and the blood-colored aura moved slightly. Get closer to Yuan Tian. The next moment, Yuanation's spiritual power began to slowly drain away, but the effect was somewhat negligible. It doesn't have much effect, because the speed of blood formation absorption is too slow. But this is normal. After all, the power of the venerable level is too strong, and the level of the blood array is not high, so it is difficult to suppress him, so we can only absorb his spiritual power slowly, and cannot directly block his spiritual power like before. Having said that, if he continues to be absorbed like this, the spiritual power in Modita will also be blocked due to loss. This takes time to wait. Answer my question. Yuan Tian was seen standing in front of the two of them, staring at them closely with wolf-like eyes, and said coldly. There is a hint of irresistibility in the words. Seeing this, the two of them looked shocked, and started to use their defense law treasure, but this was just a cover-up. But Yuan Da had already guessed it and sneered. Before the two of them could make any move, Yuan Tian's power shook, boom. He directly suppressed the two of them. His body couldn't move even half a step, and he seemed to be under control. Feeling the majesty coming towards him, Fang Gu gritted his teeth and refused to let himself kneel down. No matter in his previous life or this life, He had never knelt down for anyone, let alone Yuan Tian. So what if the person in front of me is strong? But Shan Yu on the side didn't have Fang Gu's perseverance. As soon as he was pressed, he knelt on one knee on the ground. His face was extremely ugly and he couldn't move. But Fang Gu's expression has never changed, and his posture is still upright, as if there is a mountain in front of him, and it is impossible for him to kneel down. Moreover, the aura emanating from him became more and more terrifying, and his spiritual pressure became more and more powerful, as if he wanted to crush the two of them to death. Otherwise, you still have this thing, I look down upon you. Just become the withered bones here, this is your only chance to survive. Boom. Yuan Tian made a cold voice, which made Shan Yu's heart tremble and her face looked a little panicked. A voice came, and the two of them looked up and found that not far away, Yuanation's figure was under a house. At this time, the pressure originally released by Yuan Tian also began to gradually dissipate on the two of them until it disappeared. Yuan Tian narrowed his eyes and moved his palms. In an instant, the shadow of a giant mountain appeared on the two of them. Turning to look at Shan Yu, he whispered, "Brother, didn't you say there are still treasures? Why don't you take them out now?" Boom. A breeze blew through the air. Seeing this scene, Yuan Tian's eyes turned cold. Since the two of them didn't say anything, he would have to use some tough measures. "Don't tell me." "I'll let you tell me, Cough, cough." When Yuan Tian saw this situation, his eyes moved. Yuan Tian was careless and failed to react in time. He was hit by this punch and fell straight to the ground. After taking a pill, he raised his eyes and looked at the black shadow high in the sky. Fang Gu cursed bitterly, feeling unwilling to do so. He was originally kneeling on the ground, but at this moment he stood up, and the space ring on his hand shone with a light. Damn it! Even he who has become a strong martial venerable can't bear it? Phew! The next moment, Yuan Da's figure appeared in mid-air, looking down at the two of them, his robes rustling under the influence of the wind. Shan Yu looked away in pain and gritted her teeth. That punch was not light. Before he could make any move, the palm of the black shadow turned into a giant fist that reached the sky, and with the force of thunder, it hit Yuan Tian on the head fiercely. Tell me why this place is like this." The peak strength of martial spirit fully exploded at this moment. After the dust and smoke cleared, Yuan Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, twisted his sore arm, and touched his fainting head. The next moment, a black figure flashed past, and then appeared in front of Yuan Tian. He turned to the two of them, narrowed his eyes, and said in a deep voice, "I really didn't expect it, I really didn't expect it." He looked slightly surprised when he discovered that it was actually a puppet who hit him. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 212. After finishing speaking, Yuan Tian had a weird smile on his lips, and then his eyes sharpened. The next moment, his figure turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the puppet high in the sky. Click. Boom. The next moment, the puppet's body instantly tore into pieces and burst into flames. "Are you running out of options?" Seeing that the puppet had exploded, Yuan Tian looked at the two of them with a ferocious expression and asked with a smile. Seeing this scene, Shan Yu swallowed and sighed slightly. This time, he really had nothing to use anymore. He borrowed this martial sovereign puppet from someone else just to use it in case of crisis. Could save his life, but now it is ruined, which also means that his last glimmer of hope has also disappeared. After hearing Yuanation's provocative words, Fang Gu's expression did not change, and his expression remained calm. It seems that there is no fear of the next ending. Even Yuan Tian felt a little strange when he saw this scene. After a few breaths, a smile suddenly appeared on Fang Gu's expressionless face. "Time is up." As soon as the words fell, all I saw was high in the sky. A crack in space appeared. Seeing this scene, Yuan Tian, who was originally smiling, finally started to panic. His brows were furrowed and his eyes were fixed on the person in the crack in the space. The aura emanating from his body was like a formidable enemy at this moment, and he began to look at it squarely. Yuan Tian felt a very powerful threat in it, something he had not felt for a long time. There was a sound of footsteps. I saw a man wearing a black robe walking out of it. His face was covered by the black robe, making it difficult to see his true face. The aura emanating from his body is the same as that of Modita, reaching the martial venerable third layer level. Seeing the person coming, Yuan Tian was startled, pointed at the person with an unbelievable expression, and said dumbfounded, "How could you appear here? Don't you know whose territory this is?" Yuan Tian's expression was obviously a little panicked. He said these words very carefully, as if he was afraid of something. Seeing this, the man in black robe smiled coldly and twisted his fingers. "This protector appears here, do I still need to report to you? I come here if I want to, and if I don't want to come here, I don't want to come here. Do you have any other objections? If you have any opinions, I'm not afraid of this protector. You can just show me where your strength is. Can you beat this protector?" The man in black robe stared at Yuan Tian with his eyes and made an indifferent voice. "No. No." Yuan Tian waved his hand quickly and shook his head in panic. "Even what I was planning to say, I don't know how to say it from now on." Then he adjusted his mentality, leaned over and asked, "I wonder what the Lord Protector has to do when he visits our city today? Or is there someone who has offended you?" "Don't worry, sir, as long as you tell me, I will definitely catch that person. This person must be taken care of, otherwise I won't be able to bear the trouble he will cause in the end." Yuan Tian said secretly in his heart. It's a pity that the man in black robe didn't take this trick. A black sharp blade appeared in his hand. Looking at the sharp blade in his hand, the man in black robe smiled coldly and looked at Yuan Tian. Without any hesitation, he stepped forward and rushed forward. The two of them each performed famous moves, and the roar was endless. But the moves had no effect on the man in black robe. Mid-air. A person who dares to provoke even the heavenly palace cannot be touched by a strong martial venerable like him. Although this person is in the same realm as him, their identities are completely different. These are all the consequences of the battle between the two. The area within a radius of 10 miles was instantly reduced to ruins, showing the devastation. Everyone took a breath when they heard this, and began to speculate whether Yuan Tian had offended the Soul Palace in some way. And among them, countless people died innocently. Before taking action, Fang Gu notified the nearby strong men of the second hall for safety reasons, in order to avoid encountering the same scene as just now. It was discovered that a fierce battle broke out between the two, constantly fighting each other, like a tiger and a lion. Fang Gu, who was in the ruins, looked at the scene with a calm expression, as if he had already expected this scene. Such battles naturally attracted the attention of a large number of powerful people in the city, and even people passing by began to observe. Where did he not use all his strength? I even showed my energy to suck milk. Boom. Which two seniors are fighting here? This power is a bit too terrifying. After all, it is very difficult to see the battle of strong men. If you don't observe it today, you will miss an opportunity. Yuan Tian didn't speak, he was breathing heavily. As for why Fang Gu has the right to mobilize people from the second palace. He looks a little ugly. Don't say yes, it's obviously it. Wearing a black robe and having a powerful aura, who is this if not the Soul Palace? The man in black robe stepped on the void, holding a sharp blade in his hand, looking at Yuan Tian with a sneer, and said with a playful expression, "Why don't you use all your strength? Are you afraid of hurting this protector? Besides, don't forget that the place where the two of them are now is still within the scope of the blood array. Soul Palace, this is the top power that he dare not touch but only dare to look up to. Seeing this situation, Yuan Tian felt a little helpless. He didn't want to fight with the man in black robe, because there was a big word soul written on the man's chest. The rest of the people were speechless when they heard this, because like the old man, they also showed panic expressions. As long as his opponent releases a strong move, he can use the ability of the technique to extract half of the power. Therefore, no matter how powerful Motoda's offensive is, it has no effect at all, but it actually encourages him. The ferocity of other people's moves? I think I can tell. This person seems to be the city lord Yuan Tian. And the person fighting him seems to be the Soul Palace. This sentence is the man in black robe Yin and Yang himself. This is because of Fang Gu's second uncle. His second uncle gave him a token before leaving. That token is the Soul Shadow token that can mobilize the powerful below the martial saint. When the two saw this, they quickly looked up. This is because the technique practiced by the man in black robe is the primordial origin technique that can suck away the opponent's spiritual energy. But no one cares about the life and death of this group of people, because in their eyes, death is too normal. Their own strength is low, and they can only say that they deserve it. A white-haired old man said in panic. A shocking roar came. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 213. Then the man in black robe put away the sharp blade. This didn't mean that the man in black robe wanted to spare Yuan Tian. Instead, he felt that after this battle had been going on for so long, it was time to prepare to end it. He still had some things to deal with, not to mention that there were still a bunch of people watching him, and he didn't like the feeling of being watched. Of course, if possible, he would want to kill these people one by one now. But unfortunately it is not possible, because the second palace has such an order. Those who have nothing to do with that force should be let go immediately. If they are related, then there is no need to hesitate and kill them directly. And these forces are only related to the city lord's mansion, and have little to do with Yuan Tian himself. Therefore, if the man in black robe takes action, he will break the rules. It can even be said that Yuan Tian is only related to his son and has nothing to do with everything in other city lords' mansions. Because Yuan Tian spends most of his time in seclusion and seldom cares about what is happening in the outside world. He prefers to be alone, otherwise he would not forget to call his subordinates over. Phew. The next moment, the man in black robe turned into a black mist and flew into the clouds. There was a faint light in his eyes, like a dead devil. Immediately hundreds of black ghosts appeared in his hands. The ghosts screamed strangely, and a pair of scarlet eyes stared at Yuan Tian from high in the sky, as if thinking about how to eat him later. Below. Yuan Tian swallowed hard and a trace of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. The clothes on my body were all soaked. I felt a little panicked and scared. GGG. The ghost laughed again. Immediately, under the control of the man in black robe, he rushed straight towards Yuan Tian. Looking down from a high altitude, the ghost was like a black meteor smashing down. It was not loud, but it hit people's hearts directly, making people scared. Panic. Seeing this scene, Yuan Tian felt helpless and gritted his teeth. He had no more spiritual power to use. It could be said that the fuel was exhausted, but he was a little unwilling. Why can't I beat you? Is it possible that the achievement is because your cultivation method is higher than mine? Snort. Yuan Tian was not convinced, looked up into the sky and shouted. In the worst case, I'll fight you. After saying this, Yuan Tian's eyes turned cold. The ring on the finger flashed. The next moment, a pill appeared in front of my eyes. This pill is the Yuan Spirit Pill. Yuan Tian has reached the end of his rope. If he doesn't use this elixir, he may not have a chance in the future. Yuan Tian didn't hesitate and swallowed it directly into his throat. The next moment, Yuanation's originally dry spiritual power suddenly emitted a trace of cyan light. A violent spiritual power gushes out from it like a waterfall. The spiritual power that was originally exhausted is also full at this moment. This feeling lasted for a breath, and Yuan Tian regained his strong strength. He clenched his fists and raised his eyes to look at the incoming attack. There was no trace of fear in his eyes, but full of excitement and determination. When you have no worries, nothing matters anymore, including your own life. High in the sky, the man in black robe saw this scene. His expression remained unchanged. He naturally knew that a martial venerable strong man would not be killed so easily, unless he was suppressed by his realm. Yuan spirit pill. It's quite a good thing. The man in black robe whispered. He is not afraid of Yuan Tian, who has already started to fight hard. It seems that everything Yuan Tian has just done is just a clown in his eyes. Boom. The two collided, and Yuan Tian fought with these ghosts. His fists continued to swing, and the collision sound continued to roar. In less than a few breaths, the ghosts that were originally spread across the sky were instantly destroyed. But it wasn't over yet. Yuan Tian turned his attention to the man in black robe again, and the next moment, he rushed towards the man in black robe at lightning speed. Seeing this scene, the man in black robe showed no fear and sneered. The sharp blade in his hand emitted a terrifying light, and this aura spread for hundreds of miles. The people watching felt this aura, frowned slightly, and then they couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat, and their faces turned pale. Swish! The man in black robe slashed with a sharp blade. Then I saw several black sword blades rushing towards Yuan Tian. Seeing this, Yuan Tian didn't hesitate or be afraid. He knew that even if he escaped today, it would not have any effect. Escape would only encourage others' arrogance. The final result would be death anyway. While he had the opportunity now, he might as well fight to the death. After all, the results haven't come out yet. Who says you will definitely lose? Ha! Yuan Tian burst out with all his aura and destroyed all the attacking swords with just one punch. Then he turned into a stream of light and went straight towards the man in black robe, as if he wanted to die with him. Seeing this scene, the man in black robe's expression remained unchanged, but he kept a playful smile on his lips. Because, from beginning to end, the man in black robe never cared about what Yuan Tian would do next, whether he would run away or anything like that. It's like a superior person looking at an ant. I feel so sorry for you. The man in black robe shook his head, with a hint of pity in his expression. As soon as he finished speaking, a black eye appeared in the heart of the man in black robe. At this time, the original appearance of the man in black robe began to change. But everyone outside is completely unaware of all this. Because these eyes are the consciousness of a strong martial emperor. It can also be said to be a slave mark. Immediately, the black-robed man's eyes turned cold, and a powerful black spiritual power burst out from his palm. The spiritual energy splashed out, scraping through the nearby void, causing the space to shatter, and the aura on his body skyrocketed at this moment. Wow! The next moment, the black spiritual power turned into a dark sword blade, and then slowly formed a giant sword in the sky. As soon as the giant sword appeared in the sky, dark clouds rolled in the sky, thunderstorms broke out, and roars one after another continued to come from the dark clouds. Hoo ho ho! The strong winds raged and the earth shook. This powerful force cannot be exuded by a martial venerable. Even if some people say that the man in black robe is a martial emperor, it is not an exaggeration. Because this move does not belong to the category of martial venerable, but the master behind the man in black robe made the move. The arrival of a strong martial emperor. If he can't even exude this power, then he shouldn't be called martial emperor. Calling him a clown is more like it. but if you want to withstand the forcible arrival of a martial emperor on yourself, it still takes some effort. You need to have strong willpower and mental power. Otherwise, the consequences will be that your spiritual consciousness will be destroyed, your body will be broken, and it will disappear between heaven and earth. As soon as this move was used, the man in black robe spit out a mouthful of bright red blood, his face gradually turned pale, and he no longer had any strength left in his body. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 214. But Yuan Tian was not afraid. He thought it was the man in black robe showing off his momentum and didn't pay any attention to it. He didn't believe that he and the man in black robe were both in the same realm and could still lose miserably. He raised his head, looked up at the sky, roared angrily, and the next moment, Yuan Tian rushed straight towards the man in black robe like an angry tiger. The momentum is thunderous and the momentum is extremely huge. Boom! A collision sound was heard, and Yuan Tian was instantly reduced to ashes without even showing an expression of reluctance. This is not because Yuan Tian himself is weak, but Yuan Tian is relatively strong. If Yuan Tian breaks out his strong strength early, the man in black robe may be a little difficult to deal with. It's not bad for Yuan Tian to die like this. You must know that there are many people in the abyss in the world who did not die like Yuan Tian. They all suffered abnormal pain and torture before being killed. If they could have died at the beginning, if you die like this, you will probably be able to laugh out loud. Fang Gu, who was standing below, looked at the scene with a calm expression and cold eyes. A strong person cannot be touched by a weak person. A strong martial venerable can never defeat a martial emperor. Because martial emperor is martial emperor, these two words represent this person's arrogance and arrogance. As a strong man standing at the top of Mount Everest, the aura exuded by him is something that his small martial venerable can't touch. Yuan Tian didn't die immediately because the strong martial emperor gave him face. The gap between the two is not just Tians, but the gap between ants and humans. Then, the figure of the man in black robe disappeared without a trace, because if he didn't evacuate, he would probably die here. After half a stick of incense, the sky of billowing dark clouds gradually dissipated at this moment, revealing the light blue sky. It seemed that the battle just past was as fleeting as a dream, but this was not a dream, because the earth was incomplete and the damage is real, and what just happened was not a dream. The people watching were shocked and speechless by the scene just now. They stared in stunned silence. They didn't even know that the battle was over. It wasn't until the man in black robe disappeared that they gradually came back to their senses. The fighting stopped, and Shan Yu, who was in a daze, came back to his senses at this moment, turned his head and looked at Fang Gu and asked in a deep voice. "Junior brother Fang, tell me truthfully, are you secretly a member of the Soul Palace? Why did a strong person from the Soul Palace appear here today? Is it possible that our luck is really that good?" Hearing Shan Yu's inquiry, Fang Gu shook his head and did not answer the question. Instead, he looked at him and said, "Senior brother, I can't explain this matter right now. The most important thing now is to escape from here. After these useless things, let's talk again." After finishing speaking, Fang Gu pointed at the people in the distance with his finger. "Don't forget those guys in the distance. The strength of these people is not weak. If they see us here, I'm afraid they will be unable to hide again." Seeing this, Shan Yu could only nod helplessly and did not ask any more questions. Then he took out the boat from the space ring, and the two of them sat on it. Then, with a burst of shaking, it turned into a stream of light and disappeared. Here. After a cup of tea, a large number of strong men in the city arrived here. I also saw the ruins in front of me and some unsightly scenes. I didn't expect that City Lord Yuan would actually offend someone from the Soul Palace, and he was at the level of a protector. One person said with a shocked expression. "Yeah. I really don't understand. Don't you know the gap between yourself and the Soul Palace?" How can he offend such a strong person? Oh, all I can say is that I deserve it. Let's not talk about this for now. This city lord is also a member of the Black Demon Sect after all. I believe that what happened here will soon spread to the ears of the Black Demon Sect's big shots, so we should quickly find a way to evacuate here before they come. Bar. Otherwise, they might be angry because we didn't help. What if they kill us in a rage? Yeah, so it's better to leave quickly. Hurry up. After hearing this, everyone nodded repeatedly, returned to their homes in a hurry, informed their relatives, and left the city on a spiritual boat. At the same time, the heavenly palace, the splendid and dazzling imperial palace. I saw one of the old men with white beard and hair appearing here out of thin air, with a pair of cloudy eyes that seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. The aura exuded by him made it difficult to see clearly, as ethereal as a god. This person is Li Ziyun's master, deist. But it's not real, it's a clone. At this time, Li Ziyun was standing aside with a respectful expression, quietly listening to what the old man said. Disciple, when do you plan to take action? The old man looked at Li Ziyun aside with his cloudy eyes and asked softly. Hearing this, Li Ziyun didn't think anything, nodded firmly and said, Master, I want to deal with the Profound Heaven sect now. I don't want to wait for a moment. After all, it poses a great threat to us. I would have if we deal with it at once, my disciple will feel really uneasy. Seeing this scene, the old man nodded slightly and said nothing more. There was no point in talking more or less. This matter was not a big deal to him anyway. Then, as you said, when the war comes, I will personally deal with those powerful men from Profound Heaven sect. After finishing speaking, the old man seemed to have thought of something again. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Li Ziyun and asked, but this Profound Heaven continent seems a little strange. When I first arrived, I felt the breath of a strong man from the semi-fairy realm, but it was a little weak. Seems to be asleep. What? Hearing this, Li Ziyun looked shocked and looked at the old man with a hint of disbelief. It's not that Li Ziyun doesn't believe it, it's that the Profound Heaven continent has not heard of the existence of a semi-immortal strongman for tens of thousands of years, and it seems to have been cut off tens of millions of years ago. What? Don't you know? The old man looked a little confused. As the overlord of Profound Heaven continent, how could Li Ziyun not know this? But Li Ziyun really didn't know. He shook his head and replied respectfully, Disciple really doesn't know. Seeing this, the old man glanced at her suspiciously and said nothing. Perhaps the aura of the strong man in the semi-immortal realm was too weak, so that people with lower realms could not detect it. That's it, then go down and arrange your subordinates to prepare for this Profound Heaven sect. As a master, you can take this opportunity to take a look at what is so strange about this Profound Heaven sect and why so many geniuses were born. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 215. After all, there are so many strange geniuses in Profound Heaven sect, and they all have the ability to fight across levels. This is completely abnormal in the eyes of the old man. It would be fine if there are only one or two. I heard that every strong martial emperor has the ability to fight across levels. Fighting prowess, is this normal? Therefore, a trace of greed and curiosity arose in the old man's heart. It seems that they want to uncover the mystery of Profound Heaven sect and want to watch the wonderful scenes inside. Yes. Li Ziyun didn't think too much, nodded, and then crushed the golden jade metal in his hand. The next moment, all the martial saint, half-emperor, and martial emperor who were practicing in seclusion opened their eyes at this moment, stopped retreating, and turned into a stream of light, moving at an extremely fast speed. Appeared in the main hall. Half an hour later, hundreds of powerful figures instantly appeared in the originally empty hall, and the aura flowing around them caused the space to shatter and the void to vibrate. There are more than 100 strong martial saints alone. Even so, most of them are around the martial saint third layer level, and there are very few strong ones at the peak of martial saint. And there are only more than 70 half-emperors. As for the martial emperor, there are even fewer, only about 30. Of course, this is just a literal number. 30 martial emperors are already a lot of powerful ones. You know, in the eyes of the world, having 2 martial emperors in one force is considered too much, let alone 30 in Tiangong. If this is too few, it makes those people without martial emperors look so embarrassed. Of course, these are not all the high-level powerhouses in the Tiangong. There are only about 1/3 in the main hall. If the remaining 2/3 were all gathered here, the scene would be spectacular. The reason why Li Ziun didn't call them all was because of the following reasons. Of course not. Say it. After all, when the two fight, those below the martial emperor can only watch from a distance and cannot fight the main battle. They even have to save their own lives at that time, because every word and deed of the strong martial emperor represents the world. The shock is beyond what they can bear. After everyone listened, they looked at each other. They just thought about it for a while and nodded without any opinions. A few days later, seeing this scene, the old man coughed a few times, looked at everyone and said, "I have nothing to say, I just hope that you can do your best in this war and don't do any cheating." Everyone at this moment has this kind of whimsical mentality. Everyone had serious faces and looked at the old man and Li Ziun respectfully, with a hint of excitement in their hearts. Of course, if someone dares to say no at this time, then don't blame her, Li Ziun, for being unreasonable. As the founder of this force, she really does not want the force she has worked so hard to establish to be destroyed like this. Another half of the time for burning incense has passed. Anyway, it's just sacrificing some strong people, it's not a big deal. Even if these people die in the end, they will just feel heartache. After all, no matter what, these people will not be able to compare with their own lives. In addition, Li Ziun also wants those forces to know that even if Tiangong loses, it is still an untouchable existence for them and a force that will always be above them, because even if the real dragon turns into a flood dragon, but it is a dragon after all, and it is still an existence that cannot be touched by other species, because I have been to a place that you have never been to. And everyone also hopes that the old man will be favored by him because of his politeness, and even let his face remain in the old man's mind forever. So I only give you one order, and that is to inform my subordinates to send all the strong men above the venerable level to the heavenly palace. They obey my orders. Since we want to ask the Profound Heaven Sect to declare war, the pomp and momentum must be greater than the Profound Heaven Sect, not weaker than it. Seeing this scene, Li Ziun nodded slightly to them. Afterwards, Li Ziun sat on the throne, staring at everyone with a pair of phoenix eyes, and said in a deep voice, "To tell you the truth, I am calling you here this time for nothing else, but that my heavenly palace is preparing to present to Profound Heaven today. Sect declares war and lets the world see who is the real overlord on the Profound Heaven continent. Now that all the top experts in the heavenly palace are present, she can announce what will happen next." Seeing everyone nodding, Li Ziun did not criticize anymore, but looked at the old man beside him. The old man glanced at him and said nothing. Thunderclouds were rolling in the sky, and the terrifying thunder dragons were swimming among them, causing roars and vibrations like a catastrophe. Nan Xiao, who was silent, suddenly stood up at this moment, with a smile on his face and a respectful look on his face, and replied, "The first is to leave some fire. If Tiangong really loses this time and all the strong men they brought with them die, even she herself will fall. Tiangong will definitely bleed a lot, but it will not be cut off, because Tiangong will not die. The foundation has not been lost. As long as those fires are still there, this power will not be destroyed in one day." All the 8 major worshippers of the heavenly palace also appeared here, looking at the two of them respectfully. There is indeed nothing wrong with what Li Ziun did, and it was even perfect. Because everyone knows that the old man standing next to Li Ziun is a genuine semi-immortal strongman. Not to mention other things, just the 3 words half-immortal are enough to make their hearts surge, and they are willing to give everything they have. When Li Ziun, who was sitting on the throne, saw this scene, he looked at Nan Xiao deeply and said nothing. After all, it is useless to bring more people, because the main battle this time is between the strong martial emperor, not martial saint, and martial venerable. Martial saint is just a foil and cannot stand up. It has too great a role and can only be used to clean up the battlefield at the end of the final battle, nothing more. After finishing speaking, Li Ziun did not speak, but looked down at the crowd with his eyes, as if waiting for their reply. The old man naturally saw it, but he didn't speak and closed his eyes tightly. The second one is to deter other forces. If Tiangong is defeated this time, what cannot be avoided will be the endless siege of these forces, so it is always good to keep some strong ones. They are not stupid, so naturally they will not cause trouble at this time. Finished. This is what Li Ziun thinks in her heart, and it is also her method. If he were in the upper world, these people wouldn't even be qualified to look directly at him. If his disciples weren't here, the old man would have wanted to refine this group of eyesores into elixirs. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 216. The earth shook and the mountains shattered. The momentum one after another all represented the upcoming great battle. At this moment, all the major forces and top experts in the central region were watching the scene closely, their eyes flashing. They can't move away because they know that no matter who wins this battle, it will not be the best outcome for them. The outcome they most want is for both sides to lose, so that they can also benefit from it. After all, no one wants to be pointed out by a force like Tiangong again. Profound Heaven Sect. Inside the splendid and majestic Tianqian Palace. At this moment, the Profound Heaven Sect, the powerful martial emperor and the martial saint gathered here, and their momentum faintly exploded. Although it was not as good as the Heavenly Palace, it was enough to surpass other top forces. First up, Qin Xian was wearing a golden mysterious robe with dragons and phoenixes carved on it, lifelike. The dragons and phoenixes looked like real ones, with a majestic, noble, and untouchable aura. Qin Xian stood with his hands behind his back, his face calm, as if a great catastrophe had occurred, and his face was not even the slightest bit moved. A pair of deep eyes looked at everyone and said in a deep voice, "Have you all felt the aura these days?" After hearing this, everyone nodded seriously. Now that you feel it, the final battle is inevitable. As expected, the momentum at this moment is just that the Heavenly Palace is declaring war on us, and it also wants to take this opportunity to test what we will do. So, I believe that it won't be long before the Heavenly Palace will take action against our Profound Heaven Sect, and it will be with the determination to die. Even in the final battle, maybe in addition to the martial emperor, the strong ones who will appear, even there are also strong men from the semi-immortal realm. The threat of the semi-immortal realm is too great for our section. Although it is only a rumored strong man who has never appeared, one thing has to be said. The strength of the semi-immortal realm is definitely an existence that is extremely difficult for us to defeat. Even an invincible existence. So I plan that you don't need to sacrifice your lives in this battle, but just take action depending on the situation. Sect Master, why? Wu Huai, wearing a corset robe, stood up and asked doubtfully. Yes, Sect Master, why is this? Since we are the elders and peak masters of Profound Heaven Sect, we naturally live and die with Profound Heaven Section. How can we escape? Others also stood up one by one at this moment, their expressions full of dissatisfaction. Qin Xian waved his hand at this. You just need to follow my orders, I say. Just listen. I have my own way of dealing with that strong man from the semi-immortal realm, so you don't need to worry. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other. Although they were confused, the sect master had already spoken, so they could only accept the order and nodded respectfully. Then Qin Xian gave some important instructions to everyone, and said nothing more. He waved his hand to tell everyone to leave. After everyone retreated, Qin Xian looked into the distance. Whether we can rise depends on this battle, but the consequences will definitely be a huge price, but the result is good. Qin Xian is not relying on him, but he is sure of winning this battle. Don't forget, he also has a system. Say it. A few days later. Boom. Outside the gate of Profound Heaven Sect, a void was directly torn open by a powerful force. Only several huge body-shaped spirit boats were seen, and the end of them could not be seen from a distance. The formations that flickered on them were endless. Just because it doesn't mean that this is the spirit boat at the peak of heavenly rank. The spirit boat is like a huge dragon that reaches the sky, looking down at the weak Profound Heaven Sect, making people unable to resist at all. On the spirit boat, countless venerable martial saints stood on it like ants, each staring at the Profound Heaven Sect with wolf-like eyes, as if they wanted to carve it up in the next moment. These heavenly rank peak spirit boats are treasures accumulated by Tiangong over the past tens of thousands of years. They will not be used easily unless necessary, but in today's battle, Tiangong must use it, because under Li Xiun in her eyes, if she wants to fight, just have a fierce fight instead of one fight after another. This is too protracted for her. Naturally, the disciples in the Profound Heaven Sect heard this huge momentum that penetrated directly into their hearts, and immediately stopped all movements in their hands and began to walk out. This is the heavenly rank peak spirit boat. I didn't expect that I would see it outside the mountain gate today. And, there are big words written on it. Doesn't that mean that this is the heavenly palace? Thing. When everyone heard this, they quickly looked around and found that it was indeed what the person said. What should we do? Can we really defeat the behemoth of Tiangong? Just this spirit boat makes me unable to resist at all. One disciple looked panicked and said nervously. Despite this, he had no idea of escape. Because as long as those who practice the Profound Heaven Sect technique will slowly transform into loyalty under the influence of time, they will be loyal to the Profound Heaven Sect. At this moment, a man wearing a white robe, with red lips and white teeth, and a handsome face stepped out from the crowd. Beside him, there was an extremely beautiful woman. Her dark green dress outlined her proud figure. Her plump breasts and tall face, although cold, did not lose her beauty. It's worthy of a sentence that will captivate the country and the city. The visitors are none other than Lin Tian and Xue Linger. Seeing the two of them, everyone quickly leaned down, cupped their hands and said, "Elder Lin, Senior Sister Xue." The two nodded slightly. Then Lin Tian frowned slightly as he looked at the behemoth in the sky, but he didn't show any fear at all, as if the final battle belonged to them. Lin Tian didn't know why, but there was indeed something somewhere. A voice told him. This battle is won by Profound Heaven Sect. Exhaling a breath, he looked at everyone and said. You don't have to be afraid or panic. I've already asked Master. We don't need to go fight against the strong men of Tiangong this time. After hearing this, everyone's eyes showed a little doubt, and in addition, there was also some confusion. I saw an outer disciple in commoner clothes standing up and shouting, "Why? Elder Lin, although our cultivation level is low, it does not mean that we want to escape. The sect is the place where I was born and raised. I vow to live and die with it, and I, Zhang Fen, will never escape. Yeah. We will not run away, and we vow to live and die with the sect." The others also reunited one by one, shouting with some excitement. The sound was deafening and earth-shattering. What Lin Tian felt in it was the determination of one disciple after another. Seeing this scene, Lin Tian Xiulinger looked at each other, smiled, and said, "Okay everyone, don't do this yet." Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 217. I know you have this determination, but unfortunately the Sect Master has given a death order now. Lin Tian shook his head. So we cannot participate in this battle no matter what. No matter what you do, even if you threaten us with death, we will not be able to participate in this battle after all. And you all saw the scene just now. Now there are countless powerful men sent by the palace, too many to count. Among them, those with the lowest level have reached the Martial Venerable. The Martial Saint alone has reached as many as 100, and the Martial Emperor is even more terrifying, reaching the level of Martial Venerable. There are about 30 of them, dare I ask? Do all the current forces in the Central Territory want to unite and possess these 30 Martial Emperors? Not at all. If you go up there, there is no practical difference from sending yourself to death. You are just devoting your spirit to have no effect at all. If you really want to do something for the sect, then listen to this elder's advice, practice hard, and stop all the reasons for being lazy before. In this way, your realm can be improved quickly. In the future, you will even include I have a chance to play. After everyone listened, they looked at each other and hesitated, not knowing what to say. Looking at everyone's expressions, Lin Tian felt helpless. But he continued, "Okay everyone, I don't need to say more about the rest, it's the same thing. With our current cultivation level, including my own, if we get involved, I'm sure we won't survive even one breath, or even less. So there is no need for you to sacrifice your lives in vain. This battle only needs to be left to the great peak masters and elders. All we can do is not to disturb their battle. It doesn't matter even if we lose in the end. After all, we all have a chance to escape, we won't be abandoned here. This is also what the Sect Master asked me to leave to you." After saying this, Lin and Tian disappeared. The two of them just came to pass it on Qin Xian's order. Now that the words have been passed on, it's up to these people what to do. When everyone saw this scene, they didn't say anything. Instead, they clenched their fists tightly, then let go and sighed slightly. They can only blame themselves for their low cultivation level and being unable to help the section. If they had cultivated to become top experts early, how could they have become like this? A seed of becoming stronger could not help but be planted in everyone's hearts. But some people don't think so, such as those disciples with more stubborn personalities. When they saw this scene, they couldn't help but start slapping themselves in the face, bang bang bang. One red mark after another appears. It's all my fault that I don't feel comfortable practicing. Otherwise, I could have shared the sect's current situation, but now, ugh. Me too, I shouldn't indulge in that kind of joy, I should practice hard. Maybe we are really too comfortable, otherwise. Everyone sighed to each other, their eyes a little dim. After finishing speaking, a deafening sound reached everyone's ears. Both elders and disciples who are lower than Martial Saint in cultivation, please retreat now. This is the order of the Sect Master. As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at each other. Although they were unwilling to do so, they still did not dare to disobey the order. Immediately, a space formation appeared in front of everyone. Everyone seemed to understand something when they saw this. According to their understanding, there is no mysterious place in the section. If there is, it is the most mysterious inner sect in the sect. Under normal circumstances, the sect will not use the space formation unless necessary. If the space formation is used, it means that the sect is in danger and they need to go to a special place. Thinking of this, everyone did not hesitate and walked in. After a few breaths, no one in the noisy crowd was visible. The originally bustling sect has turned into cold places one after another from this moment on. with only some remaining traces indicating that there are people living here. After burning the incense, a shadow appeared here out of thin air. This man was holding a long knife, with a cold face, and was dressed in a robe, with long hair falling down to his waist, and deep eyes. The aura he exuded was extremely terrifying, and a small hole was cut out in the nearby void. The person coming is none other than Kuang Yun. Immediately after, just a few seconds later, several more powerful figures appeared here. They are the peak masters of the major peaks in the Profound Heaven sect. The leader was Mo Chen, who was dressed in black and had a stern expression. No one had any intention of talking, because the war was about to begin, and this was not the time to gossip. Instead, he looked at the sky with extremely vigilant eyes. The aura covering him was faintly erupting at this moment, like a volcano about to erupt. Mo Chen looked at the people of Tiangong high up in the sky, and said to a few people without changing his expression, "The sect master has given the order. Since Tiangong wants to fight us, there is no need for any peace talks. Fight them directly to the end, so don't hold anything back this time, just release your strength with all your strength." After everyone listened, they nodded seriously. Seeing this, Mo Chen didn't say anything else. He moved, tore apart the void in front of him and appeared in front of everyone in the heavenly palace. When everyone saw this, they quickly followed. Looking at Mo Chen's tall figure, the old man on the spiritual boat at the peak of heavenly rank frowned slightly. The blood demon battle body is indeed very difficult. The old man narrowed his eyes slightly and murmured. However, there was no hint of fear on his face. After all, he was just a person with a blood demon fighting body. Although he was very strong, he was not invincible, not to mention that his own body had not been dealt with before. A person with a blood demon fighting body. Thinking of this, the old man's mind moved, and a faint light appeared in the palm of his hand. Looking at the light in his hand, the old man had a lot of thoughts in his heart. To deal with a person with a blood demon fighting body, you must not make a killing move, but firmly control him first so that he cannot release his moves. In this way, you can completely defeat this person. Although the old man is a strong man in the semi-immortal realm, he is not absolutely invincible on this continent, because once he takes action, the heavenly law of this continent will stare at him. If he kills too many strong men, the heavenly law will begin to release the great Dao breath to instill a strong martial emperor with top physique. If that's the case, then the old man will be in a very difficult situation. Although the gap between the semi-fairy realm and the martial emperor is very big, it is not very big, because there will always be a genius who has the strength to fight beyond the level, and this person is Mo Chen standing in front of the old man. What's more, the law of heaven in this continent is still suppressing him. If the strength of his clone reaches the next level of the semi-immortal realm, then people with the blood demon fighting body will not be the slightest threat to him, but it is a pity that the laws of this continent do not allow for a stronger realm. Coming, the old man at this moment can only exert 50% of the strength of the semi-immortal realm. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 218. Mo Chen, who was standing opposite, didn't know what the old man was thinking at this moment, and even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Because in Mo Chen's eyes, as long as his power is strong enough, so what if he is in the semi-immortal realm? I can still defeat it on my own. Then, Mo Chen's own aura burst out at this moment, and the air waves swept out across 1,000 miles, shattering the void, and aimed directly at the old man's eyebrows. It seems that he wants to kill him with one blow. Seeing this scene, the old man snorted coldly and stared at Mo Chen without paying any attention. With a wave of his sleeve, the original terrifying aura disappeared instantly. To him, this aura was no different from scratching an itch. At the same time, this unprecedented war naturally attracted the attention of all the top forces in the central region, and they all watched this shocking scene with serious faces. Everyone was talking constantly, and everyone was carefully analyzing who the final winner of this war was. Even so, everyone still hopes that no one can win between the two, but that both parties will suffer losses. In this way, their power will no longer have a behemoth like Tiangong weighing on them. Feel the gaze of the old man's cloudy eyes. Mo Chen did not retreat, but looked at each other without hesitation, but what he felt was the pressure coming towards his face. This pressure finally made Mo Chen's unmoved face suddenly wrinkle. This person is in trouble. After saying that, a black spear with the aura of law appearing in Mo Chen's hand. This spear is not an illusion created by Mo Chen, but a real emperor weapon. Qin Xian personally selected it for him on the system mall. Seeing this situation, the old man looked at Li Ziun behind him and said, "Leave this person to me, and you tell them to deal with the others." After the words fell, before Li Ziun could reply, the old man's figure moved and turned into a snow-white gust of wind, appearing in front of Mo Chen. The old man was seen stroking his hair and beard with one hand, and condensing powerful spiritual energy in the other. Immortal energy, but this continent only has spiritual energy, not immortal energy. Junior, I see that you are so talented, why do you resist so stubbornly? So, I will give you a chance. If you kneel here today in public and worship me as your teacher, I can be merciful and stop this war. Hearing this, Mo Chen smiled coldly and shook his head with disdain. No need, your true body is a powerful person in the upper world, and I am just a person from the lower world. How can I be embarrassed to worship you as my teacher? So, I hope that seniors will stop playing tricks. After all, you have already reached such a status. Do you still need to play tricks on me, a junior and low-level person? If your friends in the upper world heard about it, wouldn't it be ridiculous? When the old man heard the sound, his expression suddenly changed. The hand stroking his hair and beard suddenly dropped, and the formation he originally used also stopped at this moment. Now that I have been discovered, there is really no need to hide. He looked at Mo Chen solemnly and said in a deep voice, "You are very smart, but you are a little conceited. I give you one last chance to stop stubbornly resisting, otherwise you will not be able to bear the pain you will suffer in the end." Mo Chen said nothing, the spear in his hand emitted a cold light, and his decision had been made. Seeing this scene, Mo Chen immediately became vigilant and carefully looked at this empty space gate. The next moment, the black tiger behind Mo Chen suddenly sprouted tall wings, exuding a mighty aura and rushed towards the old man. The suction force was extremely powerful. Mo Chen's limbs seemed to be controlled at this moment, unable to move at all. Then he was slowly sucked into the door, and he was about to be sucked in. Swish, swish, swish. Hoo hoo. Seeing this scene, the old man knew that there was no need to say any more. If it weren't for the fact that Mo Chen had the blood demon fighting body, the old man would have rushed forward to kill him. How could he have chatted with him for so long? Ha! Roar! Mo Chen's expression condensed, and his body began to struggle. Then, the spear in his hand made a crackling sound. Seeing this situation, Mo Chen knew that if he didn't use his backup plan, the consequences would be unimaginable. The spear in his hand shook, and a breath of law surrounded him. From a distance, it seemed to be an indestructible shield. This guy has become stronger again. The old man snorted coldly and said with a proud expression. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man formed seals with his hands, and only heard a bang. Although this move was domineering, in the eyes of the old man it was just the skill of a three-legged cat. With a flick of his finger, the originally ferocious tiger disappeared in an instant. Mo Chen let go of the long spear, and the next moment, the long spear was hanging in the sky, exuding a frightening and terrifying aura. Boom! The old man snorted coldly and said, "I hope you can say such words again later." This breath spreads directly across thousands of miles. The space gate instantly exploded under this breath and turned into a shard of spiritual energy. Amo Chen shouted, "Tiger addict." Seeing this scene, Amo Chen's eyes sharpened, knowing that his chance had come. At this time, Guao stood up, with a cold face, stepped on his left foot, and with a bang, the terrifying aura dissipated instantly. A pair of blood-red tiger eyes stared at the old man closely, and the tall tiger body carried a hint of arrogance. The next moment, a space door appeared in front of the old man and opened slowly. A terrifying roar came, and a giant black tiger figure appeared behind Amo Chen. Boom! Seeing this, Guao frowned and said with a vigilant expression. "It seems to be saying, so what if the move I just made didn't hit you? I can still use 10 moves and hundreds of moves again." But his vigilance was of no use at all, because at this moment, the space gate suddenly erupted with an extremely powerful suction force. The strength of the semi-immortal realm is beyond the imagination of mortals like you. Do you really think that I will be afraid of you just because you have the blood demon fighting body? But the more he struggles, the stronger the suction force of space will become. Everyone on the spirit boat began to be frightened by this aura, with frightened expressions and thoughts of escaping. Amo Chen still didn't speak, his eyes were still staring at him coldly, and the spear in his hand kept making a low roar. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 219. Inside the Tianxian Palace. Qin Xian stood with his hands behind his back, and a mirror image of water ripples appeared in front of him. The images just shown one after another appeared here, and extremely terrifying sounds came from it. But Qin Xian still looked indifferent and had no intention of taking action. Instead, he watched quietly, as if he was observing something. It's not that Qin Xian doesn't want to take action, but that he is powerless. After all, the old man, like Guao back then, was outside the sect and not within the sect, so Qin Xian couldn't display his invincible strength and couldn't suppress them. Unless the old man himself was accidentally beaten into the sect, then Qin Xian would still have a chance to kill him quickly. But unfortunately, such a probability is too small, almost as small as fishing a silver needle out of a haystack. After all, the old man is one of the strong men in the upper world. He has countless experiences in his life, is extremely knowledgeable, and is extremely cunning. It is absolutely impossible for him to make this kind of low-level mistake, even though the strength of the sect is very low. Unless the old man himself has absolute crushing strength, it's almost the same, but with Amo Chen, a pervert, the old man is just like a father taking care of a baby. He can't hurt him at all, for fear that Amo Chen will use the system to do some perverted behavior. Furthermore, the power of Profound Heaven Sect also made the old man unable to guess and understand it, so he felt a sense of vigilance in his heart. His spiritual consciousness will also take time out to look at the Profound Heaven Sect from time to time, trying not to let his body get close to the position in the sect. Thinking of this, Qin Xian shook his head and didn't think too much. Instead, he waved his hand and saw that the mirror image in front of him suddenly changed into a scene of the Profound Heaven Sect Peak Masters fighting against all the powerful martial emperors of the Heavenly Palace Martial Emperor. They did not fall behind at this time and found their own opponent at this moment. However, this situation is not optimistic, because the victory has been falling towards Tiangong, and it has not tilted to my side at all. Qin Xian was not surprised, he seemed to have known everything for a long time. After all, there are nearly 30 powerful martial emperors in the Heavenly Palace, and only about a dozen of his own Profound Heaven section. This situation is extremely normal in his eyes. Even so, it is indeed a hardship for the great Peak Masters, because in this situation, they are equivalent to having to deal with 2 or 3 martial emperor experts in a row. Therefore, A strong martial emperor like Kyoshi was very frustrated when he was beaten, his face was almost red with anger, and he had no chance to fight back. He could only rely on his own strength to cross levels and grit his teeth to resist their fight. Seeing this situation, Qin Xian had nothing to do, but in times of crisis, he would still go to the rescue. Time passes slowly like this. The battle has been going on for several days. Even if those slender white thighs were exposed, they would never take another look. Li Ziun hammered the armrest heavily, frowned angrily, and glanced around with her sharp beautiful eyes from time to time, as if she wanted to find someone to vent to. After several days of fighting, Li Ziun, who was on the spirit boat, could not sit still, and his expression gradually showed a trace of anxiety. I saw black shadows flashing one after another among the major mountain peaks located 100 miles away. These black shadows were like bats, making it difficult to see their faces, and they also exuded a heart-stopping aura. Ziun, don't be impulsive now. You and I are not allowed to rush forward at this time. Don't forget, only some peak masters and elders are dispatched in Profound Heaven Sect. Heavenly Palace. After hearing Guo's words of persuasion, Li Ziun took a deep look at him, nodded helplessly, and sighed again. His eyes kept turning, as if he wanted to find a place to escape, which would be better than being beaten to death by Li Ziun. So Ziun, you must not miss important events because of this. Besides, your master is also here. After all, this kind of elixir is very precious. If you use one, you will lose one. How can they be willing to use it? Not everyone has a top alchemist like Xiaoran like Profound Heaven Sect. On the other hand, Tiangong and others are different. They don't have so many restorative elixirs. Say it. I saw that the originally repaired mountains had turned into a mess and ruins, with rubble and caves everywhere, and no place was intact. You can leave everything to your master. No matter what happens, remember not to go up. It seems that he will rush forward in the next moment. At this time, Mo Chen, who was dressed in black, and the old man stood opposite each other, looking at each other warily. On top of a spiritual boat at the peak of heavenly rank. But Li Ziun had no time to worry about their expressions. Instead, he stood up, puffed out his plump chest, and his face gradually turned cold. That's because they received Qin Xian's order. Snort. Whenever Profound Heaven Sect is about to be unable to hold on any longer, there will often be a huge reversal. Such reversals again and again make Li Ziun feel sick and look extremely angry. Such an appearance naturally made some of the strong men standing around Li Ziun start to be afraid and look uneasy. They all seemed to be looking for each other's weaknesses. On the other hand, the sect master that day did not show up at this time. Maybe he is just like us now, watching us from a mysterious place somewhere on the battlefield, just to see how anxious you are now. And these people are none other than the powerful men of the Second Palace who have made the entire central territory uneasy. Each of them has reached a strength above Martial Venerable. So at the beginning of the war, all the powerful men from the Soul Palace and the Shadow Palace gathered there early under the leadership of the Soul Demon and the Shadow Demon, just to prepare to give them a fatal blow if the Heavenly Palace was negligent. Hit them so that they can no longer move. As for why they appear here? After fighting and recovering, the Profound Heaven Sect side was not tired at all, but was still enjoying it, and seemed to be used to the feat of 1 against 3. She will still listen calmly to Guo's words. Because every martial emperor expert in the Profound Heaven Sect carries a large amount of restorative elixirs. But at this moment, Guo, who was beside her, suddenly grabbed her, shook his head at her, and said persuadingly. As for why this is the case? That's the power of Profound Heaven Sect. Even if they have it, they won't use it, because they usually treasure such top-notch elixirs and never use them unless necessary. Although looking at the battle situation, the victory was indeed in her favor, but the most important thing now is that a few days have passed, but there is still no winner in the field, as if there is a stalemate. Once their spiritual power and law power are gradually exhausted, everyone will take out the pills and start taking them without hesitation. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 220. Not far away, on top of a tall peak, a black figure and a purple figure stood here with their hands clasped against each other. The aura they exuded suddenly reached the peak of the intermediate level of Martial Emperor. The eyes hidden under the mask coldly stared at the scene of the high-altitude battle. These two are the masters of the Soul Palace and the Shadow Palace, Soul Demon and Shadow Demon. The two of them were able to improve so quickly because of the large amount of support Qin Xian gave them. For example, 9th grade's top elixirs can be thrown to them like eating, without any heartache. Thousands of them are thrown away, and more and more. There are so many elixirs that can reach such a state even if they are knocked down. Logically speaking, with so many elixirs, why do the two of them only reach the middle level and not the high level? This is because the two of them did not use all of them for themselves, but for the protectors and strong men below. Otherwise, where would the Martial Emperor's strong men in the second hall come from? There is no way that Qin Xian can go to the system mall to buy it for them. After all, Soul Demon and Shadow Demon have independent thoughts and will consider the future, so they will reward everyone without hesitation. Behind the two people stood countless figures in black robes and purple robes, including men and women. Their faces were extremely cold, and there was no trace of emotion in their eyes. Like a killing machine, it exudes a strong and terrifying killing intention. Killing intent shot straight into the sky, causing the void to emit a harsh tearing and shattering sound. Everyone stood here quietly, because they were all waiting for orders from Soul Demon and Shadow Demon. As soon as the two of them spoke, they would rush forward without hesitation and turn this place into a place of death. In addition, an extremely secret formation was also made at this time. This formation is called Huanquan Formation, which means that we will be with you on the road to Huanquan. It is also the body integration of the Killing Formation and the Fascination Formation. Once activated, the damage caused must be huge. Even the powerful Martial Emperor cannot avoid it. In a dark underground cave, a middle-aged man wearing a black robe with the vicissitudes of face is standing here with his hands behind his hands, and there are two figures beside him. Hearing his master's reply, Huang Jianyun nodded, but still looked a little confused and continued to ask. Seeing this, the old man smiled and waved his hand lightly. As soon as the space door opened again, he saw that the fusion power of the spear and the black dragon was instantly sucked into it by the huge suction force. Taking this opportunity, the old man increased the pressure again. With the input of spiritual power, several white tentacles instantly appeared in the space gate. The tentacles seemed to have eyes and rushed directly towards Mo Chen, pulling him straight inside. Mo Chen gave him a cold look and said nothing. His strength was indeed not as good as the old man, but it was also because he was not seriously injured. Otherwise. Then he raised his eyes and looked at Mo Chen and said, "Show your true strength, Junior. If you only have this little strength, then I advise you to retire early. After all, let alone this kind of strength now, even when I was born you're not even worthy of wiping my feet." As soon as the words fell, there was a powerful pressure pressing on the black dragon shadow. "Stop bluffing." "As you wish." Hearing this, Huang Jianyun was shocked and nodded. Roar. The black dragon shadow couldn't help but let out a low roar, and looked at the old man as if it had independent consciousness. It exuded terrifying dragon power, and the two began to form a confrontation. "Master, this war has been going on for so long, why don't you go up even though you are one of the powerful martial emperors?" And the door to space just closed and disappeared between heaven and earth. The two are Fanggu and Huang Jianyun respectively. Seeing this scene, Mo Chen grabbed the spear and shook it hard. Hearing this, the man in black robe turned around, glanced at him, and replied in a deep voice, "According to the situation, my master was indeed going to play. Unfortunately, the palace master suddenly sent me a message at that time. I will not participate in this battle. There is no need to go up, you just need to hide in the dark and look for opportunities to act, maybe it should be the order of the sect leader." When Mo Chen saw this, he was startled, and then he looked at the old man with a frown, clenched his fists, and pulled him in while the old man was still provoking him. As soon as he finished speaking, the spear merged with the black dragon and rushed towards the old man with a force that destroyed the world. As for Fang Gu, who was standing aside, he didn't mean to say anything when he heard what the two were talking about. Instead, he stared closely at the picture in the mirror. Immediately afterwards, I saw the black dragon slowly hovering around Mo Chen like a patron saint, with a pair of dark dragon eyes staring at the old man opposite. Seeing this scene, Huang Jianyuan standing aside asked with a puzzled expression. Huang Jianyuan pointed at Huang Gaiyun, who was fighting hard. "What we are seeing now is just a conspiracy by Huang Gaiyun, Peak Master. Haven't you heard of the words showing weakness to the enemy?" The man in black robe smiled and didn't care about it. He patted his shoulder and said, "Don't worry. Didn't you see that the sect leader hasn't shown up yet? What's more, the strength of Huang Gaiyun, Peak Master, is not only yours now, that's all I've seen." At this time, there was a mirror formation in front of the three of them, and above it was the scene of the battle outside the gate of Profound Heaven Sect. Seeing this, the old man looked very calm, but he was a little displeased with the black dragon's gaze. He raised his eyes and said with disdain, "How dare an incorporeal dragon look at me like this? Who gave you the courage? He he. He he." But the old man's expression was still as disdainful as before. "An incorporeal black dragon is fine, but it's not worth fighting for. As long as the three strong martial emperors release this fatal blow when they relax their vigilance, the three of them will disappear in an instant. But on the contrary, if Huang Gaiyun, Peak Master, breaks out his strength early from the beginning, then maybe the current situation it will be a little embarrassing." This caused the old man to curse angrily. Master Huang Gaiyun Peak did not use all his strength this time, but wanted to secretly accumulate strength and unleash that move. "Look, Master, Huang Gaiyun, Peak Master, is now being surrounded and beaten by three martial emperor experts. He has no power to resist at all. This disciple is worried that if this continues, Huang Gaiyun, Peak Master, will fall here. But judging from the current situation, the sect seems to be unable to resist it." The spear made a roar, and a huge and brave dragon swam out from it and surrounded the spear. Boom! The spear roared again. Boom!